This is an interesting headline. This is a little different, little change of pace here for everybody. But this was an interesting story here on NBC. I left the United States for Europe and now spend only $1,906 a month while raising 3 kids. Here's why I'm never moving back. So this was a woman named Alison Opalko-Berry. She moved to Germany. She was over there for a while, and then she met a man. They had a long-distance relationship, and then she thought it best to relocate to Germany with her one child and marry him. And now they have 2 other kids. And she decided just to stay there because she has a PhD. She was earning $65,000 a year here. And she says, here, I could barely afford the American dream. I earned my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in communications in 5 years. As a student, I worked full-time as an instructor, but never made more than $1,500 a month. When I was 24, I got a job as an assistant professor of business communications and management, making $65,000 a year, and people pointed to me as an example of the American dream. But I was in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. I knew things needed to change. So then her life took a turn. Now there, hey, look, she's even got the garb down there. Good for her. She looks
like she just made a good strudel.
Yeah, exactly.
Edelweiss. Edelweiss.
And so she breaks down how much we spend in Germany. As high-earning taxpayers, my husband, who is an engineer, and I happily contribute about 35% of our income to the German social system. With Germany's statutory health insurance, which, by the way, Germany has the oldest universal healthcare system of any developed country in the world, dating back to the 1870s. Yep, back to the Otto von Bismarck days. And that universal healthcare system has lasted since then. I say even the Nazis didn't take away people's health care. That's how much people value their universal healthcare systems in Europe. Even Hitler.
What does that make people who will not give you health care? I guess they're worse than Nazis.
Worse than Nazis. Even the Nazis left the health care more or less the same. So here's the budget. 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, rent including utilities, $2,000. Very, very low rent for 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Full-time daycare for 2 kids, $98.75 for full-time daycare for 2 kids. We're trying to find a daycare for our kids now.
Monthly.
Yeah, a month. That's astounding. I mean, that's the big, as a twin dad myself, who now we just moved, we're trying to find the kids a daycare now. I mean, that's astounding. Groceries, $400 a month. Way less than what you get here. Yeah, you need to...
For a family
few loaves
that
of bread
size,
here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's nothing. $80.
I spend more than that. I'm a single guy.
Yeah, $100 a week for a family of 5. Public transportation, $107 for a family of 5. Cell phone plan, $37. Internet, $32. Total, $27.28. After factoring the $822 we received to cover childcare costs, so even as relatively well-off people in Germany, they still get subsidized childcare. We spend about $1,906 a month, or just $62 a day. And so she's not coming back. And so she's not coming back. She's staying over there. I hope I didn't depress our Americans in the audience this evening, but we did that partly for our overseas viewers, because there are so many of them.
We have a lot. We're very big in Ireland, apparently. Mm-hmm. We have somebody who's Swiss who's very curious about me trying that Javalia coffee. Or is it Sweden? Is it Sweden or Switzerland? Where's that
Javalia is from? Switzerland, I believe.
Switzerland, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's from there. Yeah, this is a demonstration of, and I think anyone in our audience knows this because that was part of our whole Bernie Sanders campaign argument, right? That we're not asking for anything crazy. We're asking for what other people in the Western world have. We're just a freak show. Now, I'm sure this will come up tomorrow in our roundtable because we're very often talking right now because everything's kind of blown apart. So everything is on the table, right? Like, what are we aiming for? What are we fighting for? I mean, to me, that hasn't changed. It's that. Now, I know we have our tanky friends in our audience. This is a broader conversation. Maybe we'll do a broader segment about this. Although, like I said, I'm sure this will come up in the roundtable tomorrow. You cannot have communism without empowering the state to a level that I am personally not comfortable with. I am not any more comfortable with a state grown that large than I'm comfortable with a private sector grown as powerful as what we have. Capitalism with social controls. And I was talking to Tusker the other day, and she she was saying, yeah, I mean, that works, but the problem is to have the resources to have something like that, you have to exploit other nations. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. I mean, we're doing that here and we're still not getting any health care. So I don't know if the one necessarily goes with the other. I think it's a question of how you distribute resources, but that's a conversation that we can have. I don't think that suggests that we should turn over all power to the state and eliminate the private sector or weaken it to the point that it doesn't act as a counterbalance to the state. That's just not where I am. People of good conscience and good faith can argue the other side. And like I said, I'm sure that'll come up on the panel tomorrow. But this, to me, you look at that, it's a good example of, hey, man, Germany is a very successful economy. Nobody would say that they don't have free enterprise in Germany. But, you have a permanent child tax credit. We had a permanent child tax credit for a few minutes in the United States during COVID. Did the hammers and sickles all of a sudden come out because of it? Did the whole country turn into the USSR because of it? And that is the myth that they always present to you to try to knock down all of these programs. It's going all the way back to Reagan. If you've ever heard Reagan back when he was doing those GE propaganda pieces, where he did that whole album about how, first it starts with medical care. And then pretty soon, people are coming and knocking on your door and getting into your affairs, right? So, I mean, this is what they've always done. But if you look at these countries, I mean, it's not. Obviously, as you say, Germany's had this since the 19th century without, crumbling into some kind of totalitarian communist nightmare. For me, the dream, the ideal was always that America would just be like the rest of the Western world. For me, I'm not any further than that. I know a lot of people in our audience are, and God bless you, but you'd have to convince me that that's a good idea. And so far, I've not heard any convincing arguments that that is not enough.
Well, to me, you don't really have much control over where a thing lands. Like, to me, I think the system needs a shake-up in the way that, like, you ever go to the grocery store and you have the scale hanging from the ceiling and you throw a bag of apples on it and the thing just kind of goes crazy for a second and it gets lighter, heavier, right?
Yeah.
Once that's what we need. We need those dials to just go boom.
Sure.
Now, the thing is, you don't really know where or how it's going to land and where it's going to end up, right? So, like, I don't really bother thinking too much about that. I never called myself a doctrinaire or anything. Even when I was a kid, when I first registered to vote, I was more or less a good Democrat. But I didn't even register with a party because I just never really felt the need to identify in that way. And I kind of feel the same thing now. Like, right now, there needs to be a massive, and I would argue militant struggle between labor and capital, because right now the problem is that concentrated capital has its foot on the neck, not of 99% of us. If that were true, there would be a real revolt. It has its foot on the neck of 62% of us who can't afford $500 when the car breaks down.
Right.
And the system is defended by those 38%, by the PMC shit-lib crowd who can. And they build a system that acts as its own fortress. And so that needs to be torn down. And so what we got to do is, to keep my grocery store metaphor going here, you've got to take a 10-pound bag of apples and just drop it on that scale. Where it's going to land, nobody knows. And wherever it lands, it's going to be a hybrid of some kind. Right. So that's why I never really bothered being too doctrinaire in my vision of what we need, because, well, first of all, we're never going to get what we need. Whatever we get, I'm sorry to have to revive this theme from a few shows ago, whatever you get is eventually going to fail. They say communism doesn't work. That's true. Capitalism doesn't work. No system works. Society doesn't work. Civilization doesn't work because human beings don't work. Everything organic dies. It's funny. I woke up the next morning.
Some things work better than others.
But yeah, that's true. There is a quality of life issue. But I woke up the day after we did that show, because now when we go live, we have a big enough audience where like people on Twitter kind of talk about us a little bit, so we see our mentions, a little bit. And somebody gave a good review of that episode. They're like, on this episode, Keaton reminds us we're all going to die. That was the one sentence review of that. So I don't want to get too morbid again. But just as a reminder, like before we get too doctrinaire about anything, nothing works. Nothing succeeds forever because nothing lasts forever. Nothing man-made is immortal. So anyway, that's my sermon on that.
Please clap.